No. Over now, Saturday, go play their first day at home again, $5. You guys all up in green gold. It's going to be rowdy. All right, the school dodgeball tournament starts tomorrow at lunch in Dodson's Meadow. Thank you to all 32 teams who signed up. The bracket is now on its way. We're counting on the scores for the second wall. Come take your team. We guys will be if you're not a team, you're not the tournament. Friday and Saturday at lunch in Dodson's Meadow. Let the games begin. All right, last couple things. In case you guys need a replacement ID, it's just $3 each. Please try and come
Can't wait. Sounds like a blast.
So you can have it time to all right, here's a special announcement.
Hey guys, this is Talia Vestal. Just a reminder that today is the last day to donate to the Pennies for Patients fundraiser. We're trying to beat the amount we raised last year, which was over $1,400. So please take out any spare change you have with you and donate it in the box this period. Thank you.
What's up, y'all? It's big again. Hey, we got a big home game against Royal this Friday. All right, Will already said come out at 7. I want everybody to be there. It's only $5 for students. Bring y'all members. Let's get rowdy.
Okay. Rose petals. Special day for me.
Why is it a special day?
Wednesday was the treat.
Why is it a cluster?
Have you become pulling me? I think it's pulling you. That's the right word. I'm saying it right.
It just fell apart. The rose broke. I'm moving around because I'm an idiot. Alright. I said it wrong.
My teeth.
He's not here. Laser plan.
Are they extra credit roses?
One day, Jose.
Meanwhile, it's not a big day for me, it's a big day for you. Stop and listen. We have a lab tomorrow, during which PT Dubs, I'll be observed. Second of all, we have a field trip on Monday, and so to make sure that we understand tomorrow's lab and Monday's field trip, you have to nail all of this and then talk about that. It takes a whole period, and somehow by weird miracles of rescheduling, all that landed on a Thursday, but it usually doesn't. And so you have to more ambitiously take notes today than usual. You're going to need this on your paper so you can write some more on there. I would try to leave some space here. And try to leave a little space above or here. I can give you about 5 minutes. I know a lot of you think, hooray, I get to talk for 5 minutes. But I have to warn you that I'm going to go kind of fast and there's a lot of details and this is always on the AP test. So please do the best you can to focus. Daisy, O. Can you please deliver this to the attendance office? Actually, are you working on things? You are working on things. You can give this to the area. Alrighty then, I'm sure you're all done with your notes, right? God. Not happy face. Hey, Cedar's back. How's your sister?
She's good. Sleeps till 3 and watches Netflix all day.
Nice. College life. Dang, man, that's some glory days.
Yeah. The second it starts snowing, she doesn't leave her apartment.
You know, it's kind of funny. I have found that people from harsher climates are usually bigger wimps about the weather.
Jose, you wanted all the test tubes and stuff in the front, right?
Actually, you know, I can even move them up there later today. So as long as they're ready to stage up here, that's all good. Also, I think we can leave the little ones, the smallest ones, in the back, because we're going to preload them with milk, and then we're going to preload the other one with water. And I guess we can leave the graduated cylinders back there to preload with yeast. How do we provide the yeast? How much do they need? Yeah. So you can figure out the best way to provide those ingredients, whether that'll go in one of those things or whether it'll go in a graduated cylinder. So whatever we're going to give them pre-measured, like all the liquids, that can go in the back on Daisy's desk. All right. Whether or not you're done, I'm going for it. Who went yesterday to the thing? And I heard some lady kind of lost her business a little bit. Is that for real?
You had a strong opinion. She wasn't like,
Okay. And how many other people spoke in the audience? 3 others?
Yeah.
And who were they? Do you have any idea?
One of the guys was the person from the drought thing that we did.
Okay. So he spoke?
Yeah. I
And,
really liked everything that they all said.
okay. And what else? He was talking about the fossil fuel impact of desalination.
He said that we should start conserving more before we go to. Yeah.
And the response to his comment was effectively, we can only conserve so much, we're still going to need more.
Well, apparently it takes more energy to deliver water back than for here. That was kind of his main defense of it.
That was his main?
No, the guy who's answering this question.
Got it. That the energy cost of delivering state water is greater than the energy cost of desalination?
It's kind of,
That's interesting. I wonder if that's...
he didn't seem so sure.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that's accurate, but I believe it if someone showed me, but I hadn't heard that before. See, that's why I'm glad I asked. Okay. Anything else that was interesting? Nobody else was interested by nothing else. Good to hear. Yeah.
Well, we've already paid for the desal plant once, and now we're paying for it again.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a... That's like if you already paid for your car and now you got to put new tires on it. Like, you have to pay for the whole thing again.
Yeah, she was like, I have to pay for one, and now I have to pay for another.
Yeah, I mean, not... You know my analogy about the car and the tires, right? Like, you're keeping it running. Like, you got to pay a little bit because they don't last forever. But
There's like Prop 218, which was going to supposedly solve the problem. They said like something with Prop 218.
huh?
It was protected. It's protected if you remember.
I wish I knew more about that one. Okay, I'm really glad that you all were sort of awake. It helps it didn't last so long, I guess. And I'm glad that you could go, even if it wasn't necessarily earth-shattering. Any other feedback before? Oh, how did it work out with the papers in the envelope and there was enough for everybody and everybody found Laura Lee or Grace or something? No logistical issues? Hard to find the place? Hard to seat? Was there enough seating?
There's
A lot of seating?
Yeah.
There was nobody there?
I mean, there was a lot of levels. Yeah.
Like how many people in addition to the high school kids?
It was like equal, like as many high school kids.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Okay. Thank you for telling me. Anybody want to ask me anything about that or anything else to talk about? Remember, you got a bunch of deadlines tomorrow. A lab, the medical release, and your accommodations paperwork for the college board if you'd like to apply. Now, what?
What's the accommodation?
Oh, hey, Cedar, welcome back to school, right? Yeah, so you just came right before the deadlines. People who qualify for extra time, enlarged testing documents, right answer in test book, preferential seating, extra breaks, extended breaks, allowed snack during, given a professional reader, all that stuff, large print answer sheet. All those accommodations, you have to apply for that. None of them, like your high school accommodations, are separate from your college board identity. So if you'd like to apply your high school stuff to the college board, or even if you don't have it at the high school but you'd like to get it from the college board, the deadline for all that paperwork is tomorrow. And your counselors and Hazel Anderson can help you with that. Okay. If you were copying, stop now. It'll stay on the board for a while. And if you have your cell phones out, put them away because this is some nitty-gritty. Lots of it. my wife and I have this thing where I throw my orange pits and my banana peels out the window when I'm driving. She's like, "Stop it, you're littering." And I'm like, "No, the asphalt is littered." And she'd be like, "Oh, but nobody wants to look at that stuff." And I'm like, "I don't want to look at the asphalt. Asphalt lasts forever. Leave me alone, devil woman." And she goes, "But it's littering." And I'm like, "I'll throw you out the window. That's littering too." And we often struggle. And the underlying issue in our debate is whether or not my apple core and banana peel, my sunflower seeds, if they are litter or not. Who says yes? I don't want to look at your stupid waste products.
Only yours are litter, ours are all fine.
Right, okay. And who kind of knows what I'm getting at because they're biodegradable?
I guess it really matters where it lands. Like, does it land on the asphalt or does it land on the little gutter?
As long as it's not my house, I don't care. And the funny thing is, my wife is not having this exact argument with me, but do we all agree what biodegradable means, first of all? Do we all know what that is? Stuff that can be eaten by someone else, right? What one man's trash is another man's treasure. So, like, when I kill Mackenzie Fell and throw her corpse over the fence, it will biodegrade, which means my trash is some worm and bacteria and carrion beetle's treasure. Right? Funny thing is, my wife is kind of right, and it's not really what we're arguing about, but it is kind of pollution. Because believe it or not, biodegradable stuff can be bad. How?
It takes a long time to break down.
Yeah, but I got nothing but time.
Can't it like create like red tides and stuff? Like,
I like the color red. Yes? There's chemicals in everything. Yes?
Is it the stuff like biodegradable or doesn't get eaten? Is that what's left over as bad?
Well, if there were such things, that's not what I'm talking about. The biodegradable stuff, in what sense can it be ecologically dangerous? Yeah.
If it like falls in water and if there's like enough of it, can it cause like what's on the board? Like
Yes, which is what?
VOD to go down or first to go up, so there's no like oxygen left for fish and everything.
Yeah.
See, this Bodhi just said red tide.
Yeah. That's not red tide though. Yeah.
Well,
it's
this
like,
that.
if
What?
it's like a seed or something, and you're just like,
Okay, yeah, invasives. I don't care about invasives. Now, the biodegradable stuff can be pollution. And I want to be very clear that biodegradable is just somebody else's food, and eating is good for that thing. So before we talk about this, I'd like to have a completely separate example. Imagine I wrap our classroom in very tight saran wrap. So all we've got is this little air bubble. And then I give you a whole bunch of food, like bacon, Gatorades. I get you all powered up, and then we all start running in place. Burning a bunch of calories, doing a bunch of work, digesting all that food. We're going to breathe a lot more, right?
And we die.
What happens pretty soon?
We're not oxygen.
Everybody clear on that? Going back to the 7th grade, it's called cellular respiration. Why do you need that oxygen at the chemical level?
because you break it for energy.
We don't.
You break what? The oxygen?
Just bonds.
What bonds?
The bonds of oxygen.
You're making me dumber. Come on.
Carbohydrate.
Carbohydrate bonds. Which carbon bonds in particular? God. Yeah, the carbon bonds in particular. we need oxygen to break carbohydrates' carbon bonds. And the oxygen is used to distract the carbon so it will go away and let us have the energy that was bonding it to other carbon. We use the oxygen to fuel our metabolism by distracting the carbon and breaking it apart to get the carbon bond energy. It's called cellular respiration, and we do that. Now, does everybody understand that if I punched a hole in the saran wrap to let some oxygen in and some of your CO2 out, we might live longer? And here's a fun fact. I want everybody to picture this. This is actually a real world issue, like for deep scuba divers and for people on the space station. As long as your activity level stays low, you don't need a lot of oxygen. But if they give you a bunch of food and you start to do a bunch of work, we have to make a bigger hole in the saran wrap. Right? Like, I feel a lot of you are like, yeah, whatever, bro, but this is going to come valuable in a minute. So do we all understand the thing about the hole in the saran wrap, the bigger hole, more activity level, more gas exchange, we could survive, more oxygen in, more CO2 out? Yeah? Watch. Biodegradable waste, like wood pulp, farm waste, sewage, urban runoff, and plain old erosion from logging, construction, farms, etc., like just old dirt, any of that, when it reaches water, is not, in and of itself, bad. As a matter of fact, it's good. It's a fertilizer. When you put fertilizer in water, the algae grows better. Red tides are not, in and of themselves, the bad part.
It's the oxygen.
It's a party. Ecologically, more fuel, more life. But I think some of you might unfortunately know that when the beer runs out, the party's over, and then starts the suffering of cleanup. That's actually the same thing here. With the red tide issue, the problem comes when the fertilizer runs out, all those algae starts to decompose, their decomposition uses up oxygen. And because they all decompose at once, that's when you get the dead zone. We'll come back to that next week. In any body of water, when you add a bunch of biodegradable waste, you're just throwing in extra food. So there's more work you can do because you're putting more activity into that system. Watch this. Please look up. In the clean zone, you see the water's moving that way? Yeah? In the clean zone, before the pollution source, there's plenty of dissolved oxygen, you got happy fish, many bugs, and there's really not a lot of oxygen being used up. The bugs are doing the bug stuff, the fish are swimming around, and that's about it. But now, please look up. When you put in all of this fuel to the bottom of the food web, those little tiny bacteria, they're like, hooray, another carcass to eat, or whatever. And funny thing is that bacteria are very small, their cells are very tiny, they're very efficient, they are very good at getting the oxygen, and they don't need like huge globs of oxygen. So please look up. Those bacteria will, please look up, increase the demand for oxygen, and so oxygen levels drop quickly. Where that decomposition gets started, oxygen levels go down, and they go down very fast. Because, you know, all those bacteria are like, hooray, you fed us. And their population spike, bacteria populations explode. I think you know about that, right? Rapid reproductive growth, yeah. And you get to a point where there are so many bacteria using oxygen that your body of water will have a section without oxygen. It has gone septic. It's called a dead zone. Here, look at my fishies. They have died. There are no fish. Only the bacterial decomposers. They're using up all the oxygen.
Oh.
And as the water flows on by, the biodegradable material is slowly being broken up. And how does the oxygen level rise again?
The bacteria die.
Yeah, but then what would put oxygen back?
The gas exchange.
Yeah, please look up at the surface, that gas exchange. I got a few separate details, then we'll come back to that. First of all, does everybody know that your lungs have a thin coating of water? You're all breathing underwater, just like gills. You carry a little bit of water with you, and you do that same liquid to air exchange inside your lungs. Everybody know that? Concentration gradient of gases. There's more CO2 in your blood than in the air, so the CO2 wants to leave. There's more oxygen in the air than in your blood, so the oxygen wants to go in. And so your blood is pumped into the lungs, and then that layer of water has the bridge, so to speak, between your blood flow and the atmosphere, so when it gets back to your cells, it has more oxygen to share. That's like this. Oxygen goes in, CO2 goes out. That's why I did that example of our room with the saran wrap, because it's nothing special. Everything that's happening here is just plain old breathing to digest bonds. Like biodegradation, that's what you and I do. We biodegrade breakfast burritos and fried chicken or whatever. Then there's bacteria that will biodegrade the rest. But that's just plain old cellular respiration. Oxygen in, CO2 out. What happens here, please look up, is there's essentially a small hole in the saran wrap and a lot of jumping jacks going on. You understand what I mean by that? There's just a lot of demand for oxygen and a very gradual, small supply of oxygen. So, if you could please look up again. As the water flows, the CO2 is off-gas to the atmosphere and oxygen dissolves back into the water. And so oxygen levels start to rise. You get a few fish not so stoked in the recovery zone, and then plenty of happy fish in the clean zone. Here's another way to think about this. This might be simpler and more easy to understand. I'll say the exact same stuff, but now that I've said it the complicated way, maybe I can say it in a more direct way. When you add biodegradable waste, you benefit the decomposing bacteria who suck out all the oxygen and screw everybody else over. As that degradation has sort of happened and oxygen is added, everybody's happy again. So, immediately downriver of human activities, you'll get sections of rivers that are not passable. There's too much degradation of material to allow life in that section. Over here it's happy. Over here it's happy. But as the water flows through here, the oxygen is sucked out by all those bacteria. And it takes a little while for that oxygen to come back into the water.
How does oxygen come back?
This is plain old gas exchange. You know, the same way that your lungs work, there's nobody pumping oxygen in or out. You're just moving the blood across a layer of water, or under a layer of water, that has a little trapped section of atmosphere, what you breathe in every breath. And that concentration gradient, there's more CO2 in your blood than the air, so the CO2 leaves. And there's a lot more oxygen in the air than in your blood, so that goes in. It's just across the gradient. It's an osmosis. Who else?
How is the oxygen actually stored in the water?
Whatever dissolved oxygen is. As O2, I think. But I don't know. Who else? Yeah. It is oxygen that's saturated into the water. It's O2 in between water molecules. It's not a chemical transformation. It's a state change of the oxygen. Yeah.
Did the fish know not to go like into the?
Kinda, yeah. The truth is, you wouldn't see that many unless they got caught by surprise. Because if you've ever been hooked up to a scuba tank when the air runs out, you can tell. Like they'll start sucking. There's like nothing coming in. And so these fish are like, meh, and then they go, yeah. Usually they would not be dead because they can tell it kind of sucks there. I don't know if they know, but they respond, yeah. What else? Okay, I can tell you a story. You all know that I live in the Sierras during the summer. And I spend a lot of time outside. And I really like, as I think you can see, I really like natural bodies of water. I have kind of a contract with myself that every day that I'm not in Santa Barbara, I like to enter a natural body of water. So in the summer, like last year, I missed 6 days, I think, where I was not in a natural body of water. Fun? No reason whatsoever. And when I enter those bodies of water, I tend to drink a little bit of it. And my wife always goes, come on, you're going to get sick. You know you're not supposed to do that. How many of you have heard that you're supposed to filter your water in the backcountry? And get ready for this mind boggler. 13 years, almost every single day of summer, I have drunk wild water. I have never gotten sick. Anybody want to know my secret?
You've drunk wild water.
I find water that's downhill of a lot of oxygen. Like right after a waterfall. See, like in that pool, when I'm swimming with my daughter on my back, that waterfall makes a whole, you know, where that water's all white and riffly and gnarly where my wife is in that waterfall. Those pools right there, they're like saturated in dissolved oxygen. If there was anything left to digest or outcompete, it would have already been digested or outcompeted. That's when I drink the water. I do not drink stagnant water. I don't drink water low in oxygen. See, look, there is one last detail that I haven't gotten to about this diagram. I told you to leave a little space down there. Anybody know who the maybe one unwanted intruder is in this section of the river? Who's the thing that we worry about in that section of the river? What is that unwanted intruder? Oh, really? Really? Okay, now let me ask you a different question. Why can you light your farts but not your burps?
Oh man.
Why can you light your farts and not your burps? Farts have methane, burps do not. Why do farts have methane? Because of what?
Anaerobic.
Anaerobic. Anaerobic what?
Digestion.
Anaerobic digestion. There are anaerobic bacteria in your intestines because there's no air, right? Right? Do we agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot light your burps because there's a different bacteria in your stomach, right? Those are aerobic. Does anybody see a place on this diagram where anaerobic bacteria might stand a chance of surviving?
The dead zone.
Yes, in that dead zone where it's anoxic, where there's a lot of oxygen sag. Anybody know what happens when you eat another person's poop?
get
I mean like a fork of it. I mean,
you start digesting it.
like food poisoning. E. coli. You ever heard of E. coli? You know where E. coli comes from, right? So watch. This is actually surprisingly relevant, as you'll see in a moment. These areas where you have a dead zone, they suck for the fish and stuff, but they also suck for humans. Because this area is very, very low in dissolved oxygen, anaerobic bacteria thrive there. The stuff that lives in your gut lives in here. And you don't want that stuff to get into you because that makes you sick. There's this place called The Pit. I think it's also known as Arroyo Hondo? Or Burro. Arroyo Burro. Also known as Hendry's Beach. It used to be the Brown Pelican. Now it's the Boathouse? Yeah, Boathouse. That's a drainage for a bunch of urban Santa Barbara. And after the first rain of the year, we wash into the ocean a bunch of biodegradable material plus a few dog turds. Or a few thousand dog turds. And all that stuff floods out into the pit where bacteria populations take off, and after a couple of days, the oxygen levels have dropped. So much so that the bacteria in the dog poop thrive. They're like, holy crap, I am back in an intestine. And Jose goes out there to go surfing and rinses his mouth out with some salt water. And does some bodacious surfing maneuver tricks and gets dog poo in the ear and in my sinuses. And aka ear infection, sinus infection, gnarly barfy poopies.
Wouldn't you get hepatitis?
Well, I don't know the details of hepatitis survivorship, and I believe hepatitis is a virus.
Yeah, I thought that if you go in the ocean after it rains, you're like at high risk of getting hepatitis.
I don't know anything about hepatitis, but you're on the right track, because things which survive in an anaerobic environment, like, can survive in this environment. So with the addition of biodegradable waste comes one unwanted intruder, high survivorship for E. coli, other intestinal bacteria, which are not good for us to put into our bodies. They conflict with the existing microfauna. Yeah?
When you light it on fire.
You may be onto something. Look, you're more right than you realize. You're more right than you realize. When you have stagnant water with a lot of decomposition, like in a swamp, if this area down here actually becomes truly anaerobic, then instead of CO2 off-gassing, you get bubbles of methane, which are flammable swamp gas explosions. And that's real. That's real. Like, people who go out to noodle catfish will light a cigarette and get a little flare of natural gas because they're releasing a bubble of natural gas. More right than you realize. Anybody want to talk more about this stuff? A lot of people can't understand why, dirt is pollution. It's it's just dirt. God made dirt. Dirt don't hurt. And yeah, you're right. It's not that the dirt is bad. It's that when there's a whole bunch of dirt in one place, the decomposition uses up oxygen, which is very damaging ecologically and also for humans. We all good with this? Anybody want to talk more about that? Because if you're over that, I got to change the subject and get to study goal number 34, which is also 3 stars. And we don't have a ton of time. Oh, great. We don't have a lot of time at all.
Oh, thin pancakes.
Which one, 34?
34. The best part of our field trip will be the wastewater facility. I'm going to skip a couple of study goals because I need you to understand what's happening there. And I want everybody to notice it's called wastewater, not poo-poo. Before we talk anything about wastewater, I want to get a couple of facts straight, just a couple. First of all, listen very carefully to this. Sewage is a bunch of stuff which isn't poop. Everybody expects to see, like Baby Ruth in the pool, when they go to the wastewater facility. All my students are like, is that the poo? Is that the dookie right there? I saw one, look, there's a turd. And no, you won't. No, you won't. No, you won't. Nope. No, you won't.
It's gonna happen.
Nope. You're not going to find a turd down there. There's a couple of very simple reasons, and we really got to get this out of the way because there is a little content coming. First and foremost, most of wastewater is actually just water, and most of the stuff that goes into the sewage at your house has nothing to do with poop, I hope. Like when you wash your laundry, poop-free. Butterflies aside, poop-free. And when you wash your hands, poop-free, right? 99% of the time. Okay, there's a lot of grit and sand, laundry detergent, and like maple syrup stains or whatever was on your clothing. But when you wash your dishes, there's like food debris, like, tomato peels and little bits of onion and some like ground beef, and nobody likes cilantro. And so like, yeah, you've got like some food debris in the drain, but that's not poop either. And when you shower, there's going to be like little bits of human hair, a shocking amount of like fat and oil. When you come to think of it, like when you wash all those pans and like all of your bowls, and like when you eat like tomato sauce, and like the human body sheds quite a bit of oil. And you've got like shampoo and conditioner, but it's basically water and water and water and water, with soap and laundry detergent and shampoo and conditioner and lotion and toothpaste and God knows what else. And there's like human skin and human hair, and there's like sand and grit and like food debris, and yes, okay, there's like some urine, and yes, I suppose the turds, but the turds don't go as turds. If anybody's ever seen like a clogged toilet after a couple of attempts, the turds fall apart pretty fast. No, we got to talk about this.
This is relevant.
I said, this is very relevant. And by the way, everybody poos. Especially Daisy O'Mahony. When you flush the toilet, there's a pee trap that goes like that, and then like that, and then like that, and then it turns, and then it goes into a sewage line. So the turd gets like mashed. Dang it!